19, 18, 17, 16, 15, and those numbers keep running backward on this black screen in a glowing red. Right below that are the numbers 47, 22. 47, 22. Now I want you to hold on to those numbers. The ball bounces off the backboard. I'm standing at the brink of the three-point line, raising my hand up, inching backward, indicating to my teammates that I'm open. The next second, I'm in possession of the ball. I am driving full speed for the basket. I managed to outrun one of the defenders on me. One more in my way, a crossover, one last dribble. I take the first step of my layup. The second one, I stretch my follow-through as close to the basket as possible. And I make it. The buzzer goes off, 47-24. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, is how the under-19 girls basketball team had lost to the same exact team for the 5th time. But don't get me wrong, we've had our own share of celebratory wins. Now, this wasn't just any other match. It was one of the last matches that we'd get to play as a team. A week after this match, as this loss kept gnawing at me, a small seed of regret took root within me, if not playing in the under-17 instead. Now, I was asked to consider this by a couple of my teammates and my coach herself, but it was only after the loss that the agonizing question that we've all been faced with at some or the other point in our lives kept lingering relentlessly. What if I had? Now, this regret was due to 2 reasons in particular. The first one was the fact that I was one of the youngest on the team, and unlike most of my teammates, it was the last year where a few of us were still eligible to play in the under-17. But the second was what carried the greatest weight of regret. After going through the under-17 fixtures, we were almost certain that we would have won, despite a couple of the tougher teams that we have to go against. I kept asking myself, why? What drove me to make that decision despite knowing that I could have given us a way better chance at winning? In life, it's always these impossible to answer whys that make way for internal conflicts and dilemmas. What we hate most about new experiences is not the experience in itself, but the uncertainty that surrounds it. Take, for example, one of the most shocking trades of recent NBA history. Luka Doncic, who was the face of the Dallas Mavericks, was traded off mid-season to the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, for those of you that don't watch basketball, Luka was one of the franchise players of the Mavericks. And his trade mid-season left fans perplexed with questions like, why him? Why now? And what if things had played out differently? In life, when we're encountered with difficult situations, our mind is bound to fixate on those questions that we cannot answer. But it's in learning how to navigate through these experiences that we grow, rather than letting that stunt our choices. Now, I have a question for you. What drives you? That was quite an abrupt question. But I want you to think of it in terms of something more long-term. Considering the fact that most of our audience are 15, 16, 17-year-olds, what drives you to study, to work hard? It would be to score well on an exam. That would cumulatively add to a better score sheet that would allow you to apply to the best university in that scope, to allow you to then study the course you wanted, work the career that you've always dreamed of, and finally live the life that you've envisioned. At least that's what's ideal, right? Now, the thing with this narrative is that it focuses on this end goal, and there's nothing wrong in that. But today I'm here to challenge that normal route of thinking. Instead of fantasizing about this one goal, why don't we back up all of our decisions towards that one goal? The question why, it's one of the most powerful yet versatile interrogative words. From the why when trying to seek a plausible explanation for someone's crass behavior, to the why when trying to find the cause of a natural phenomenon, to the why that questions a statement. The power of the why is endless. This is where purpose comes into play. Purpose. There's a big misconception that purpose is only found once you reach a very old age, once you've gone through all of life's experiences, highs and lows, garnered a lot of knowledge and wisdom. But research actually challenges that very idea. A lifespan study that was conducted showed that there's a U-shaped pattern. The first few years of your life, you are driven to search for meaning. But that drive slowly subsides in your mid-age, your mid-adulthood. And then finally, in your last few years of your life, which is much later, you have a specific definition of purpose. But why are we waiting till those very years, till all of that experience to finally have this clear-cut purpose and meaning in life? Now, the word purpose can be split in two halves. The first half meaning pure, without a blemish, and the second meaning pose, to simply propose, suggest, or intend. So purpose can quite literally be defined as a simple set intention that's set forth. Now, a goal is this ultimate stage that you hope to reach. And fantasizing about this one goal will only get you going so far. So, having a clear, singular, clear-hearted definition of a meaning in life is what changes your source of drive from something more materialistic to something more constant. But how do you truly figure out that meaning that's set out subjectively for you? Do you meditate endlessly till you finally find that calling in life? Or do you wait for it to be thrown like a stone to your head? Over the last couple of months, when I'd taken a short break from playing basketball, I had a lot of time to ponder upon a lot of my significant matches and decisions that I've had to make in a split second during the heat of a game. And that led me to think of larger decisions that I've been called to make in life. There were three questions that supported and explained why I made specific decisions which I initially didn't know the reason to. The most ironic part of them is that they all began with the inexplicable why. Why do I do what I do? Why do I do it even when I am tired and unmotivated? And finally, why does it matter to me in the long run? All these three questions beautifully encapsulate those questions to finding your purpose. It gives you reason to keep pushing. It gives you reason to make sacrifices, because if you were to go through life without a clear-cut intention, then you're forced to make forced sacrifices. And that makes life very tyrannical. What could now just seem as a daunting subject you simply detest studying could 15 years from now translate to you sitting on a Sunday night with your family and friends, dreading the thought of having to return back to your crop at 9 to 5 on a Monday morning. The beauty of purpose is its varying magnitude of subjectivity. My purpose as an athlete could be to dedicate myself to my sport in pursuit of excellence. My purpose is that of a student and an aspiring surgeon would be to leverage my passion and my skill to serve my best. My purpose as that of a leader would be to act with intent and embody servant leadership. And finally, my purpose is that of a daughter, an older sister, a friend would be to love and to be a constant source of trust. And the remarkable thing is that you walk all these parts of life simultaneously. In fact, no one here today will walk out of this hall just playing a single role. At this very moment, you're playing the role of that of a companion, a friend to the person beside you. At the same time, you're also playing the role of a student and an active listener. When you return home today, those roles again shift to that of a daughter, a son, a parent, a sibling. And though all these parts of life demand such different sacrifices and purposes, they all combine and align by the same values that you as an individual stand by. And as a psychology student, there's a specific term that we use when you have multiple contributing factors to one single aspect, and it is that they're independent but interconnected. And they all come in some shape or form at some point of time, coincide and give shape to this larger purpose. At this point in my speech, I've probably been 8 minutes through, if I've accurately calculated, and hoping that you haven't lost the plot by now. I have said the word why and what if 16 times in these last 8 minutes. Over the course of your life, you're going to hear these very words time and time again. So the next time you hear the words why or what if, don't just hear the question, but ask yourself, what answer would I dare to give? Thank you.